want to start off by saying that when I was in school, I never had any students around me who were African. Only Black American students did I grow up with. And so I think that a lot of the horror stories that I hear Africans tell about their experiences growing up and having to go to school with Black Americans and the names they were called, it's so foreign to me because I didn't meet any African students until I was in undergrad. And up until that point in time, for lack of exposure, I really thought that ethnically, and this is really what I thought at 18, that we weren't different. I thought that they were just from Africa and I just happened to be from America and other people just happened to be from the Caribbean. I never knew that there was a hierarchy of Black. And ironically enough, my very first college course was an African studies course on the diaspora or diaspora. And what I learned in that class about the African diaspora is that each, um, I hate to say it this way, but just a boat ride, just a boat ride separated us all. And with the exception of Africans, um, Caribbeans, Haitians, um, like Black Americans, like all of us were just separated by a boat ride. And I'll never forget, my roommate was an African girl, and I was saying something like we or us, and she gently broke it to me that Africans don't view themselves the same as African Americans. Now, as I say that, now in 2024, of course they don't. But I didn't know that at 18. And so I was like, what? You guys don't consider yourselves the same as us? And she explained to me no. And in fact, when it comes to marriage, she said that there was a preference for whites versus Black Americans because of the images that they saw of Black Americans in the media in Africa. So that was, very disappointing because up until that point, I had romanticized the entire continent and just thought of like myself as displaced from Africa, but that it would be open to me. Like I never thought that there was any type of beef, a cat like on a grand scale or chasm, I should say, between Africans and Black Americans. And that was actually the year after talking with my roommate that I changed my moniker as I relate or refer to myself. Like I always call myself Black. Like, what are you, Black? But prior to meeting her, prior to taking that course, I was adamant. I wanted to be called African American. And now I'm just like, actually, since that time, I've just always wanted to be referred to as Black. And on TikTok right now, there's this beef between British Blacks and Black Americans. It's a culture war. Who's influenced who has the best culture. And I think when it comes to culture, I would hope that if I were anything other than Black, I would still be able to just call a spade, no pun intended, and just say, like, Black American culture influences the whole world. Like, there is no culture more pervasive, more copied, more held on high with the youth. And the youth is what youth determine the cultural climate. They determine what is popular for their time. And there is nothing that any other collective has, any other group in the diaspora has created that's had a worldwide impact. And that's just true. Like, that's just not even up for debate. And it's crazy because even when you think back to like the civil rights movement in America with the descendants of enslaved Africans, because I don't like to use that S word, it was the descendants of enslaved blacks over here in America that sparked cultural and political and social revolutions in Africa. So they were inspired by what the descendants of black enslaved people, their descendants, us, what we did over here. And then they came over here and they benefited from all the laws. So it's just crazy to me that it's not all love, because there is an undeniable link from Black culture to African culture. Even our naming, like our naming practices, can be traced back to Africa. I just feel like I don't feel that we're warmly welcomed or treated by the conglomerate or the collective. And that's really sad, because what happens when you feel rejected? What happens when you feel rejected and you have good, healthy self-esteem? You're not going to continuously want to be accepted by a group that has openly and publicly elevated itself over you whilst benefiting from the laws of your ancestors that they fought and died for. So, I don't know. Like, that's just something that I think about often, especially as it comes up, in pop news. I don't know, though. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts about it? I wish it was all love. I wish it was all love between all ethnic groups, racial categories, social constructs, etc. I wish we really did live like in a utopia where everybody's like, oh, you're human. What kind of human are you? And there was excitement around differences versus like a desire to subjugate one group over or beneath another. But alas, that's not where we are. That is not where we are. I did pull some information, though, that I wanted to share. The African diaspora refers to the widespread dispersion of people of African descent across the globe, primarily due to historical events such as the transatlantic slave trade, colonization, and voluntary migration. Just in case someone might be unfamiliar with that term, when I'm really on my A1, I am going to put things like definitions at the beginning of videos. What else did I want to share? Pan-Africanism and solidarity. The concept of Pan-Africanism, which promotes unity and solidarity among all people of African descent, has a significant force within the diaspora. It emphasizes the shared history, culture, and destiny of Africans and their descendants, advocating for mutual support and collective progress. Now, when I think about colorism and how pervasive bleaching is in African countries, it's crazy to me that in spaces where Well, I mean, the colonizers. Oh my goodness, there's no nice way to say it. That happened over there, but I just still feel like being the majority. Like, how did you decide you were ugly, or that your complexion was ugly when all you looking at is you? If somebody knows the answer to that, that's crazy to me. I could see over in America or Europe where there is a need to assimilate to the dominant culture. But in Africa, like, I read a book once and it said that when whites first landed in Africa, the Africans were afraid of them and they thought that their skin was actually like made them look like they didn't know what they were. Like the skin not having color frightened them. And it's just crazy how now the descendants of those people who were once frightened by white skin, which nobody should be, frightened by humans, but just lack of knowledge, lack of exposure. But they went from being frightened to like wanting to destroy their own skin. That's it's just so bizarre. You could tell like that a lot of the issues that we deal with are not human inspired. You could just tell like this is a spiritual issue, because what in the world is happening? But yeah, what are your thoughts about the diaspora? Have you had any positive experiences? My experience was positive with my roommate, but I went on to have quite a few negative experiences. Well, two negative experiences with African braiders. I don't hold it against the entire group, but every African braider I've ever had has tried to pull out all my edges, and one even like was eating fufu and went like stopped braiding my hair when it ate fufu and put the fufu fingers back in my hair. And then when I was asking her to change something, I was very clear and very polite, and she acted like she didn't understand anything I said. And thankfully it was another black guy who was not much older than me. Actually, he didn't know me, but I knew him. He was the older brother of a girl I had went to school with, and he saw like the conflict where she kept pretending like she didn't know what I was asking for. And he said he stopped everything he was doing and politely explained it to her. And I just really appreciated him advocating for me in that way. He don't remember me. He never knew me, but I needed help because she was overpowering me. I was very young at the time, and she had already put fufu in my hair. And I just, and then I think the next African braider, which was my last African braider, she was just so nasty from the time I walked in, just mean and like bound and determined to pull my edges out. And I just kept saying, too tight, too tight. I don't want my edges braided. And they always have edges. And I have love for Africans who have love for me, but like, the Africans I see always have edges. So are y'all only squeezing the living daylights out of black women's hair? Because why y'all walking around with edges and you're braiding each other's hair or braiding your own hair? That's some evil stuff. That's some evil stuff. I don't even know how we got here. What? I don't even know what I'm going to end up titling this book. This video. But thank you for listening. Please share your comments below, no matter how random. Give them to me. I want them all. Thanks for listening.